And then we'll just give it a few seconds here. All right, I'm just going to start talking through this because I know we're going to be live here any second now. So Kelly, excited for this. Obviously, this is one of our last ones of the year when it comes to our LinkedIn Live. So honored to be here, spending the time with you. And I'm so glad we had the privilege over the last several LinkedIn Lives to bring such value, strategic value to HCPs. So excited to talk through specifically this last one of the year. And honestly, I think, Kelly, this is probably one of the more important ones that we get to. And essentially, we've been in HCP marketing for many, many years. And at this point with digital marketing and how things have come so far, that evolution between the sales team and the marketing team, things have changed, right? This started long before the pandemic. The pandemic obviously accelerated those things, and it's a true challenge. And as we talk through with clients and we continue to get the same feedback, this year and last year, the sales team, right? It's a roadblock, right? To get into those HCPs, to get into those providers. So now, I feel like we're really helping bridge that gap between the marketing team and the sales team, right? Because they're not in silos anymore. That it's not successful. And so obviously when we're on these client calls, they're specifically saying, the marketing team is like, hey, these reports, and we'll get into it in a second here, are really helping us, move the needle between HCP engagement, but also just interacting with our sales and our sales team and being able to interact with them more, again, kind of bridging that gap. So that's kind of the foray into today's topic for this session, specifically around, HCP digital targeting for sales success. And I know we're going to take probably about 40 minutes, something like that, to walk people through. But Kelly, why don't we, before we get into the topic, if you're cool with it, why don't we just give them a quick background about who we are?
I would love to. So a little background behind DigiVid Bio. We are a digital agency, but we're 100% focused on healthcare, medtech, and the life science area. Because conferences are such a big lead generation for our clients, we have really dialed in tactics and things to really maximize that investment at conferences. And we work with clients like anything from Hologic to Tempus to Agilent. And once again, really focusing on helping them hone in and be able to engage HCPs as impactfully as they can.
Cool.
And just real quick, just a couple things that we hear from a lot of our clients, as well as also other companies, is, their sales team out engaging HCPs has only gotten more difficult. And I think you hit upon the pandemic being one of those key factors. It wasn't easy before the pandemic, but face-to-face calls have definitely decreased in frequency and just more difficult to do. Additionally, we know conferences have been a big source of leads, but as you also know, if you've done work and exhibited at conferences, one year a conference will be amazing and it will do really well. And then the following year, it doesn't produce the results you want. So a lot of our clients are looking for ways to really help increase and maximize what they're doing at conferences. And it continues to be a challenge. Additionally, social media might have worked really, really well last year, but many of our clients tell us that that's starting to diminish as far as the types of leads and things that social media bring on. And then webinars. Webinars have kind of been the new go-to or the go-to for the last several years, but even those tend to be hit and miss. It's one thing to get somebody to sign up for a webinar. It's a whole nother thing to get somebody to actually view it. So those are some of the challenges we hear among marketers and our clients. And then here are a few things that we want to talk about today. So we want to talk about how to increase that omni-channel approach and specifically utilizing NPI numbers as well as also procedural and billing codes. We'll also dig into really being able to leverage that first-party data that you leverage it in a way that then generates a really amazing kind of a lead list of how those HCPs who were exposed to your ads, who clicked on it, it provides a lead list for your salespeople, and that's really a bit of a game changer. I hate to throw that word around, but it's such an important area of leveraging NPI codes. And then also helping. We also want to kind of discuss helping our clients take a different digital approach, leveraging technology. So as we know, not all conferences are equal. And we have a lot of clients that we talk to and marketers who are, really looking at their budgets for certain conferences and don't want to exhibit and put the money that they would. So we have a really interesting tactic. It's kind of one of our favorite conference hacks to be able to leverage geofencing when you're not actually exhibiting. We'll go into a little more detail. And then lastly, we want to talk about what are those ways that you can leverage video specifically at conferences, but really help you with capturing the stories of influencers, peer-to-peer content, things like that, that really help move the needle when it comes to marketing and engaging with HCPs.
Awesome, Kelly. Thank you so much. And as you mentioned, it's more and more common now to talk with clients specifically around how do you take that omni-channel approach? And we're going to get into and unpack like one of our kind of bread and butter, specifically ways that we can take that omni-channel approach. And specifically, it's using that first party data that you mentioned. And really, we're relying on either, we've got partners that we can collaborate with to get those MPI numbers or CPT codes, or some clients have the traditional kind of like databases of definitive healthcare or like Acuity MD. So we can definitely collaborate when it comes to that first party data, depending on, again, who's sourcing that information. But really what we want to unpack probably for a little bit here is the different scenarios or different types of campaigns that we can run based on different segments of audiences. And as we all know, healthcare providers, there's different audiences to target, but then also different segments inside of those audiences. And we can get really specific, which is exciting for this type of digital targeting. But just as a high level quick, how does this digital targeting work? Well, specifically what we're doing again is using that first party data as that HCP goes online, as that provider goes online, and they're just consuming like their normal media consumption, right? So news, sports, weather, travel, finance, gardening, any of those types of like lifestyle sites, we can target them with a banner ad, display ad. And think of it like a billboard. And then we're running on, there's millions of websites out there, right? So we're running on, like Fortune, New York Times, Yahoo, Forbes, Spotify. You can see them up here on the screen. The cool thing about this technology is it's cross-device. So it's really intuitive. It's really smart. So we may start a digital campaign on the mobile phone, but then it gets to understand what your other devices are, because most people have like 4 or 5 devices that they toggle with. So the technology is great to be able to create that, reaching more people on those different screens. And then obviously with digital, the advantage is we can optimize, right? So we may test different segments of the audience. We may test different creative. We may test different times of the year, right? And that's the digital advantage, right, that you can do with these types of HCP one-to-one campaigns. And again, most of these are based on MPI numbers, but we can also run CPT codes or ICD-10 codes as well. And this is just a quick list. I know it's kind of small, but we're happy to send this list over. Essentially, any physician, like it's part of HIPAA for them to have an MPI number. So as long as there's an MPI number in the United States, then we can target them. So I know it's really hard to read up here, but specifically, these are just kind of some usual specialties that we're targeting. But again, as long as there's an MPI number or a CPT code, we are free range to be able to target them. So Kelly, let's walk through, that's how it works, right? And so how are we executing? How are we implementing this? What are the different scenarios that come up? And this is kind of a combination of kind of a marketer's challenge, but then also the sales team having that same kind of challenge. So as a marketer's perspective, like think of this one as like top of the funnel, right? So if you're a marketer, this is new HCPs. They don't know your brand. They don't know your device. They don't know your solution. They don't know your genetic test. They've never heard of you, right? So this is like an engagement, educational situation for the marketer. But the sales rep, right? The sales rep wants to get into that provider office. But as we all know, they're having more and more of a challenge. So that's when we're helping bridge the gap with these types of campaigns. And then specifically, again, we're working with clients to understand, okay, well, who you're targeting, what segment of the audience. So again, for this one, it is top of the funnel. So they have, again, never have heard of your solution, never heard of the device. You're not reaching out to them. And so in that situation, I mean, it kind of varies. Some clients have those MPI numbers and they can say, hey, here's a segmented list of HCPs that we know have never ordered from us or never done the procedure, never ran a genetic test. And then we can run those campaigns as a top of the funnel awareness, right? And then we can start nurturing them through. The other way we're working with clients is if they do have, and I mentioned this earlier, like a definitive healthcare or a QDMD, right? And they can pull their own data to say, hey, we don't know if they've, based on our metrics, our data, we don't know that they have not ordered, or we can, get our partners in there to say, hey, let's pull a list of acquisition of people that you've never targeted, right? So those are a couple different ways that we're working with clients. And specifically, a lot of times this comes up in the top of the funnel situation because let's say it's a new product launch, right? Let's say you're new to market. Let's say you just got FDA clearance and you have a go-to market strategy. So this HCP lead gen acquisition kind of top of the funnel is a real great way to execute and start building up those list of NPI numbers. Because I'll show a report here in a moment after we get through the scenarios that shows you what sort of data we can get afterwards, which this is where, again, we're really bridging that gap because we can get that report that says, hey, here are the physicians that saw the ad, clicked on the ad. And again, bridging that gap. So then the marketing team can go to the sales team to say, hey, from our acquisition lead gen campaign, top of the funnel campaign, these are the physicians that showed the most interest, right? And that breaks down that barrier of the sales rep trying to get in there because we know the challenge is real, obviously. So that's that first kind of scenario for sales. And then that top of the funnel, like new acquisition style campaign. Anything you want to add to that, Kelly?
Well, I'll just add, there's a lot of talk about sales and marketing working together. This is a particular tactic that really does truly fulfill on the promise of bringing together sales and marketing to truly work together. It's not an easy task to do, especially when sales and marketing typically in the past has been siloed, and that just isn't something you can really get away with anymore. You really do have to work together, and this is a great tactic for it.
Yeah. And the cool thing about it, again, I'll show the report here after the different scenarios that we send every single month to clients. But essentially, the physician, the provider doesn't have to fill out a form. We know that's a huge barrier. So with these types of campaigns, they do not have to fill out any type of form, which we know that's more challenging, right? To have a provider fill out that form. And so with these types of campaigns, again, they just need to see the ad or clicked on it because we're using that first party data up front. So the second type of campaign that we're running is kind of a cross sell. It's a kind of mid funnel. So from a marketing perspective, is you're trying to get back in front of that HCP, right? That provider. And then we know from a sales rep perspective, they just haven't been successful in getting into that HCP to purchase other solutions, right? So in this scenario, the HCP, the provider, has ordered before, right? So they know the solution, they know the procedure, they know the genetic test, but there may be like a companion product, solution, or test that came to market, or it's something that the team wants to make them aware of. And so this one, we're definitely relying on our clients, right, to pull that information. And again, this is a segmented audience. So they would go in, again, a definitive healthcare or QDMD or whatever database that they're leveraging, and they would say, hey, this segment of our audience has ordered like within the last 12 months, 6 months, whatever that criteria is, or maybe they've been cold for a couple of years. Like there's a variety of different scenarios we're working with clients to really understand how we can hone in on this audience. And then again, this is kind of a companion situation for this cross sell. And so you just want to get back in front of them with this style of campaign. The messaging may be a little bit more different than like an acquisition style campaign, because one, acquisition, they don't know your solution, right? They don't know your brand. They don't know what you're offering. In this situation, they know the brand and they know maybe one of the products that you're offering. But again, this is more of a companion style campaign where we're wanting to, influence them and educate them about other solutions that we can offer, obviously. So I know, Kelly, you specifically you've worked with several different types of genetic testing companies, but in one of your scenarios, I know you mentioned some really good success with offering or reaching these physicians that have you're wanting to influence with that companion test. Can you talk a little bit about that one?
Yeah, so this is interesting. This is not a sales scenario that's top of mind with a lot of marketers, even marketers who do have multiple products that they're selling into a particular HCP. I will tell you why I think this one is so effective is the fact that you're not starting out cold. That the
Right.
HCP is already, as Jason has touched on, is already aware of already aware of a product. And it's just a matter of going in and leveraging that awareness to really then drive into other areas that this HCP could potentially be ordering. We have seen ROI anywhere in the neighborhood of 400% plus. And that blows me away because Jason and I both come from a long history of marketing and digital. And so this is one that it truly blew us away. And and it makes sense when you think about it. I mean, this HCP is
Mhm.
already familiar with your company. It's just a matter of leveraging other products that they could be ordering. And it's one that isn't top of mind with a lot of marketers out there. So it's one more reason why we wanted to get this out in front of people.
Yeah, that's huge. I mean, to be able to go and showcase this. And so, you really hit upon one of the great things about the digital execution is really connecting the dots on the back end, right, Kelly? So it's one thing to be able to say, hey, we drove X amount of impressions, clicks, those sorts of things, which are nice to see, more on the vanity metric side of things. But when we work with clients, we want to try to understand how we can connect the dots on the back end, right? To see, did we actually move the needle specifically with the actual what we're doing from a campaign perspective? Because at the end of the day, right, we want to be able to educate and influence, but then also continue to run these types of campaigns. Most of these campaigns that we're running are definitely long term, and it just kind of depends like which scenario that you would fit into. And
Yeah,
so
and
the
I'm just
third
gonna.
scenario,
Oh,
yeah,
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead.
I was just going to say that was one of the remarks from one of our clients was, you know, they were so used to just only having those soft metrics. And once again, if you can go in
Right.
and actually connect the dots, which just is not the normal occurrence for most marketers is to be able to, but because, you're already utilizing those MPI numbers, it's amazing.
Yeah, yeah, because you've got that data up front, right? So that's the advantage. If you
Mhm.
don't have that first party data, that's when it gets really hard to connect the dots because you'll see in a moment here what that report looks like, but it breaks it down: first name, last name, NPI number. So what most of our clients are doing on the back end to track this is just cross referencing that information from who is ordered and then who have we influenced through that digital campaign, through that omni-channel campaign. So it's a great way to correlate, right, that information to understand, we're spending X amount each month, right? How are we, what are the results? So you can really show that impact through the report, these reports, right? And be able to showcase this to the leadership team because obviously they want to be able to see, how the marketing dollars working, right? And so with these types of campaigns, you can obviously do that. And then the third and final scenario here, it's specifically about like a re-engagement campaign. So this is definitely bottom of the funnel. And again, from a marketing perspective, these people have ordered, but the key to this one is maybe the frequency just isn't there from an order perspective. And you can think of it as if you're, selling a genetic test, if you're, doing a certain surgical procedure, right? And there's always, we've worked with so many clients now to understand, depending on, where you're at from, specifically a procedure standpoint. And I'll get into a little bit of a case study here in a second, but this is a great way to be able to increase that frequency. And again, it's bottom of the funnel from a marketing perspective. If you're the sales rep, right, the real challenge is they may have went dark, right? So you may have went in there, you may have sold them on the test or the procedure to use that solution, but then all of a sudden, they don't want to talk to you anymore because they're like, hey, we're good, we're ordering already, right? But you can tell like specifically, and then when we work with clients, they have this information, right? We don't have this information because we don't have the data on the back end. So this is where we're really working with clients to say, hey, for that segment of audience that you want to increase, right, frequency for whatever procedure or diagnostic test that you're doing, this, you're going to have to provide that list. And then what we can do is go in there and start targeting, again, those MPIs. And then the messaging is even different than the last two scenarios, right? Because again, they know your brand, they're currently ordering. But as we've worked with like a medical device company that's targeting spine surgeons, they know like what the threshold is for number of procedures, right? They've got that down to a science to say, for simplicity, it's like, hey, they should be doing 100 procedures every year based on the amount of patients that are coming in. But we've got this segment of our audience that they're only doing like 50 procedures a year. So there's a gap where they need to be. And so we can influence those people that are only, those surgeons that are only doing 50, right, to educate them more about it. Maybe it's just, maybe they're doing testing on like half the procedures just to see what the results are. So maybe we need to engage them more about the benefits of the procedure that they're doing. And it's really a great way, again, to re-engage bottom of the funnel, right, to increase that frequency.
Yeah. And I have to say,
any
this is
thoughts on
probably,
that one?
yeah, I was just going to say, this is probably one of the top challenges we hear among our clients and
Yeah.
HCP marketers is things are going great. They love to see a new HCP start to order their products. And if it's something that is, typically that they want that HCP to order multiple products and they go dark. And this is really just an amazing tactic, because what we typically do with our clients is we start with a small campaign, then we start to dial it in. We get it dialed in very quickly, we optimize it, and then they start to increase spend, and the ROI continues to grow. So this is just a really, this is something that really, I think, solves a lot of issues for a lot of our HCP marketers.
Yeah, exactly. And so again, there's other scenarios that we've worked with clients on, but these are kind of the ones that have the most, I guess, kind of frequency that we've been running for the last several years. So we wanted to bring those to you. We're going to get into some success stories here real quick, and specifically about the reporting. Again, we've kind of teed this up all along here, but these are the types of engagement reports that we're able to show every single month to clients. And some clients have came back to us to say, hey, can we increase the frequency? Because, every week or bi-monthly, we're having a report that we want to, generate for our sales team, because we're having our weekly meeting with them. Right. And again, this is where we're helping bridge that gap. And so the reports specifically have this information on there. So as you can see up on the screen, NPI numbers, first name, last name, address, the specific title, is if there's a specialty, and if there's some sort of hospital affiliation, we want to provide that information too. And then obviously we'll show impressions and clicks and those sorts of things. But then this is, again, I know it's pretty small, but this is the types of reports that we're sending to clients. And then what the marketing team is typically doing, as I mentioned, is they're sharing this with the sales team or the VP of sales, or they're just uploading it to their CRM. And then since we do have physical location, address, city and state and zip code, what's going on, and most of the clients that we work with have, a pretty good size outside sales team. So they can go in there and slice and dice the data when they upload it to the CRM, and then they can assign, right, the reps to the certain territories, which is great. So again, this is where, marketing is really driving those leads and those engagement. Because again, we can show those reports based on if they saw the ad or they clicked on it. And then, as I was mentioning, I kind of teed this up already, Kelly, but specifically one of our clients, they said, hey, we're so excited in how the campaign is performing. Our sales team would like to get those NPI reports more frequently. Instead of monthly, can we go bi-monthly? And it just gives more proof in how those reports are helping drive success for clients. One other success story is specifically one of the clients who worked with top 10 medical device company. So they wanted to showcase, and again, this is where, the first scenario where it was a new solution to the marketplace, right? This was a new cardiac medical device. So they wanted to get this in the marketplace, but this one was pretty strategic. Kelly, you kind of mentioned this earlier, where we do the conference hack, right? That geofencing. So what we ended up doing is we layered in the NPI targeting. And then we also, in collaborating with the client, understood, hey, they've got three major conferences over the next 6 months. So we wanted to figure out how we can leverage the NPI targeting, but also, and I'll talk about it in a moment here too, but for geofencing these conferences, right? And we'll get into how geofencing can work a couple different ways. But the great thing about this success story is we were able to engage over 31,000 cardiologists. And again, we were reaching them across device. And then we layered in that geofencing. So super successful campaign when it comes to the omni-channel approach. So we were able to deliver over 750,000 ad impressions. And then the client came to us when we first were collaborating with them to say, hey, they wanted to maintain, and they were more on the cost per click. They wanted to maintain at least a $10 or under cost per click. And the great thing is we came in at $7.23. And then from a click perspective, we ended up driving over 2,000 clicks and then had a 0.223% click-through rate, which was actually double the click-through rate. And again, it just goes back to honing in on that audience of cardiologists. And these are just some examples. Obviously, I showed the MPI reports, what those look like. These are the reports when it comes to just showcasing what we delivered from impressions, and then shows clicks. And then we can even break it down. If you're like the previous success story, wanting to know what those costs per clicks are, we would break it down in these types of reports too. And then if you're not familiar with what, the actual banner ads look like online, we just wanted to showcase a couple display banner ad examples so you can kind of see what that looks like. And so typically when we're working with clients, these are multiple ad sizes, because again, you got to remember this is cross device and each screen is different size, right? Your mobile phone, your desktop, your laptop, they're all different screen sizes. So typically there's 5 different ad sizes that we're working with clients, and you can kind of see those circled for one of our clients on this screenshot here. The other opportunity that we have, and those were more like, again, display banners. We definitely have been running more when it comes to video pre-roll ads. And the way these work, it's like a 15-second spot or 30-second spot before the content that you're trying to watch that video. So let's say it's a breaking news video. So before that breaking news segment comes up, a pre-roll ad that's not skippable would show the first 15 seconds of your solution, of your device, right? Whatever you're marketing, or those can be also 30 seconds as well. So it's a great way from a video standpoint to really hack the attention of your prospect, because, when these HCPs, these providers are online, right? They're consuming media. So you want to try to stand out as much as possible. So we definitely have a way that we can advise and guide when it comes to creative, what sort of things you can do from a messaging standpoint too. Kelly, anything else you want to add before I get into some of the conference targeting we can do?
I think you covered it. The one thing that we are not going into more time to cover are just high impact ads. There are all different types, obviously, of rich media ads. And the nice part is those tend to cost a little bit more money, but why not invest in something that's really going to engage your audience when you know you have the right audience who are viewing it? So it kind of takes that part of that question out of the equation.
Yeah. I know a lot of the high impact campaigns have been focused, and you can run high impact through each of those different scenarios that we talked through. But again, you're trying to stand out online. There's competition online. So those high impact units. So if you have a new solution in the marketplace, or maybe you've got some groundbreaking data that you've recently released, right? That's a great way to kind of stand out and have that high impact moment. But yeah, to your point, you got to figure out when's the good time to execute something like that. And then specifically, I know, Kelly, you kind of teased this up earlier, but it's this, the marketing hack when it comes to conferences. And so there's definitely 2 ways to use this type of tactic, and it's called geofencing. And just real quick, how it works is specifically we put a virtual fence around the conference. And then if there's a headquarter hotel, and then any of the attendees that are going in, based on their mobile phone, we know within 10 feet that they're within that convention center, right? So we can target them with an ad. But the great thing about it is really what we're doing is we're trying to influence them, trying to educate them about what you're doing at that specific conference. But the ultimate goal is to collect as many, and this is anonymous information, so it's a lot different than what we do for the MPI targeting because we've got that first party data. This is anonymous where we just have a mobile ID number. Every single phone has a mobile ID number. And so we're collecting those mobile ID numbers. And as long as you have your location-based apps available or enabled, we can actually get that location. So most people have those enabled automatically because you're trying to check the weather in your location, jump in the Uber or Lyft, right? So you kind of have those already open. And so we can target them. Again, it's a great way to influence what you're doing at the conference, but really where it stands out the most is 30 days afterwards, we can retarget those people that were at the conference. And we know, maybe they're not on their phone, surfing the web as much as they would be. So the great thing about this tactic is you're going to stand out 30 days afterwards. especially there's so much going on at conferences between meetings, going to the trade show floor, lunches, dinners, breakfasts, all that stuff is kind of going on. So, you could definitely market it for your, whatever you're doing at your booth. But the great tactic is following up 30 days afterwards and to stand out once they're back, right, to their home location. And then this is cross-device too. So it works very similar to the MPI targeting. We start on the mobile phone, as I mentioned, but the technology is smart enough to understand, hey, they have a laptop computer, they've got a tablet that they're using. And so this ends up going cross-device, but a majority of the impressions are served on the mobile device.
Yeah.
And then, Kelly, do you want to mention anything about your hack for that too, for geofencing?
Marketers should be thinking about even those international conferences that they don't want to send a large crew and exhibit at. Those are great. We can geofence at most, even international conferences. So that is absolutely a thing. And when we talk about geofencing at a conference you're not exhibiting at, I would highly recommend you send a few reps there so that you can take advantage of maybe setting up meetings and stuff while they're there. But then you have online digital presence, and probably the most important part is then you get to retarget 30 days after, change out the creative that's a post-conference message, and it's just a really smart hack to be able to really maximize. Let's face it. Once again, we talked about conferences. There are conferences that worked really well for you last year, but didn't work well this year. So as you start to go into planning, think about this tactic, and maybe there's a place for it in your plan for 2025.
Yeah, I love that. Strategically, it's great because, to your point, not every conference is a home run for clients. And so right now they're evaluating to say, hey, do we want to pare down? And I know it's like one of those situations where it's like, hey, if we don't have a booth, they feel like we're not in business, right? Do you get that feedback from like a lot of people you talk to? And so the geofencing hack that you mentioned creates that presence, right? So, depending on what conference maybe you decide not to go to, like that digital exposure during the conference and then afterwards obviously kind of makes up for it. It may not have the biggest impact of being there, but it's also not going to cost you as much either, right? So the other thing, just kind of staying on conferences, is taking advantage of the situation where you're at these different conferences and trade shows. And typically our video crew goes to about 15 or 20 different conferences throughout the year, and we're working with clients strategically to capture, as you can see up here on the screen, a lot of different content, whether it's KOLs, customers, subject matter experts, leadership. There's a lot of great things that we can do right inside the booth, right? And so if you have a physical product or device or solution or instrument, right, we can not only get that testimonial from your customer, but also get B-roll of your instrument or solution right there on the trade show floor. And it's kind of a edgier kind of like, video, just because you're on the trade show floor, there's some hype going around in the background. We also do this in hospitality suites. So some clients prefer more of a controlled like environment, more not necessarily a professional setup, but just more of a, background of like a hospitality suite versus like the trade show floor. So at the end of the day, we can execute either opportunity, but definitely a great opportunity if you're at your conferences to capture some very strategic video footage that you can leverage. And then if you have like sponsored presentations or innovation theaters or lunch and learns, anything along those lines, a lot of times you're not for sure what attendance is going to be like. I know I talked to a lot of marketers, leading up to these events, and they're like, wow, I hope we get 50 people. I hope we get 10 people in there, right? And so this is a good way to kind of hedge your bet by video recording that, because you're not even for sure if all your customers are going to be at the conference, right? Most likely, not all your customers are going to be there anyways. So again, by recording this, you can create an on-demand version, and then you can broadcast that afterwards, right? So most people are going to set up their email sequences, their drip campaigns after the conferences based on the people that have come to the booth or at the product theater. But then, you can add your list, because again, you're not for sure if all your customers have shown up. So it's a good way to kind of protect that investment and have that educational information afterwards. Because I know a lot of these product theaters and innovation theaters, they're not cheap, right? And so by recording this, it's a great way for that on-demand follow-up. And, this is just a quick screenshot of a couple in-booth videos. So Kelly and I are happy to send over examples. We're not going to show any during this session right now, but if you're interested in looking at what a KOL booth video looks like or a sponsored presentation, just feel free to reach out to us and we're happy to send over different examples. And then the third and final thing, this kind of really hones into maximizing that engagement with the different follow-up tactics that we talked about. Really, the main thing is the sales team can follow up based on those NPI reports that we talked about. And again, the physician doesn't have to fill out the form. As long as they clicked on the ad, saw the ad, that's a report that we can generate. As I was mentioning in one of success stories, they wanted to increase the frequency of that. So we can definitely do that. And then most of the campaigns we're doing, like the HCP one-to-one targeting, we're already doing the retargeting. So there's things that we can do from a frequency standpoint. And then from a geofence standpoint, as we were mentioning too, that's already kind of built into the program. So we're collecting those mobile IDs at the conference, but then part of it is to re-engage those people at least 30 days afterwards. And then if you are capturing strategic video content at the conference, whether it's KOLs, customers, your leadership team, or if we captured a demo of your subject matter expert, right? When you build out your sequences for those nurture campaigns, it's a great way to incorporate those for the post-conference follow-up. Kelly, I'm sure I missed something for the follow-up. Anything I missed here?
Well, Jason, you rarely miss anything. I will just throw that out there. But I will tell you, this is, when you're doing the retargeting 30 days after a conference, it's a great way not to be with all your competitors in those inboxes of the attendees. Certainly you can send a follow-up email, but, to be across device for 30 days after with a post-conference message is very, very impactful.
Yep. Love it. All right. So I think we're in the home stretch here. We're at 37 minutes right now. Kelly, do you want to wrap us up for our
Yeah.
close?
Absolutely. So we know that now is a big budgeting season right now. So if you're looking and want to, if some of these ideas and tactics have got you curious and you want to discover and learn more, then by all means, and if you hit the next slide here, reach out to Jason and I. Jason and I would be glad to schedule a quick call with you and talk about and understand kind of what's working and what's not, and see if we can't discuss and come up with some ideas. We typically will dig in and want to understand what your challenges have been, what have been the conferences, the goals, where are the gaps, and then I'm happy to collaborate and talk about some different ways to help your 2025 be that much more effective.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that too, Kelly, there's a lot of other case studies as well that we just obviously didn't have time for during this session. And so specifically what we've been doing is setting up these calls, walking through scenarios, but then also strategically figuring out where you may fit at into these different scenarios that we talk through. And then also talking through like time frames, right? Because a lot of times if it is like a new acquisition campaign, we want to talk through what that like kind of production process looks like, how much time it's going to take to do the creative back and forth. We know typically there's medical legal review for those situations. And so, the big thing here is to kind of reverse engineer your time frame from when you want to potentially launch and then how long it's going to take, right, to get the campaign set up, to get the right audience built, to do the match, those sorts of things. And then also, work on the creative. So we definitely want to spend some time in talking through like what a typical time frame would look like. And then if you have a new solution, right, talking through, sometimes it takes a little bit longer from a messaging standpoint. The other thing too is, sometimes it just takes time for our clients to get the list developed, right? They have to work with their IT team, or if they have to work with their CRM manager to kind of figure out those lists or those scenarios. So if you're trying to build out those campaigns, I just recommend, starting earlier rather than later, obviously, for those, because they're definitely steps in the process that sometimes takes time to create those certain things. And so, obviously just build in time frame for those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Kelly, there's a question that came up. I was trying to talk and also read it. So that's probably why my thoughts were a little bit jumbled on that. But we had a question in the comment section. Can we design a campaign to change the belief of an HCP?
Ooh, that's a great question. I don't
Yeah.
know why you wouldn't. It sounds like it comes back to creative and also understanding kind of the background. Is this HCP somebody who has ordered in the past? But I think that that actually is a great question. I think there are things like case studies, scientific data. And what's nice is that if you understand who this HCP is as it relates to kind of in their buyer's journey, that's how you can custom tailor information that really narrows in on where they are in the buyer's journey.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I would probably just piggyback off on that would be, the messaging. And I know you mentioned that too, would be what's your key marketing message that you want? Because the banner ads, you got to think of it as a billboard. So there's not a lot of messaging that you can put in there. Really what you're trying to do is entice them to go to your website or go to your landing page to have a deeper conversation with them. So whatever you can do from 2 or 3 words, right, to engage them so they click on it. And then you can start taking over to change that belief, as the question mentioned, right? So part of it is the digital targeting too. You definitely want to layer in who that audience is. Are you changing the belief because they've ordered from you before and you've got some new solution, or the product's changed, right? So I think there's definitely some things that we can do, to your point too, like on the creative side, but then also who we're targeting. So hopefully that answers your question. If you want to have a deeper conversation, definitely feel free to reach out to us. I can comment after the show here too and put some information in that chat feature as well. So Kelly, anything else before we wrap?
I think we've covered it and then some.
Cool. Yeah. Well, like I was saying, it's an honor to be able to, this is our last one for the year. So it's definitely been an honor to spend some time with you and help educate the audience about the different tactics from an omni-channel approach. And, this topic will continue, in my belief, probably for the foreseeable future. And the data will just get better. The campaigns will definitely get better, those sorts of things, but definitely excited to talk through these different scenarios. And if you're watching still, and hopefully this has been helpful. So as you map out, strategies for next year, feel free to reach out to Kelly and I, and we'll happy to elaborate a little bit more on the different scenarios that we can set up for success. So
yep. And I think I need to go out. I think I need to go out and get my Christmas tree. You'll notice that there's no Christmas tree. I have got to get out.
Yeah, exactly.
Get those decorations up. I'm just saying.
Yep. There you go. All right. Thanks for everyone. Appreciate your time. Bye for now.
Thank you.